Casper was the first movie in history to put a fully computer-made character in the lead role. One uncle's voice secretly belonged to Bugs Bunny. One little girl grew up to rule her own dark empire. One boy stole a generation's heart in under a minute. Here is where the cast landed in 2026. Number 1. Christina Ricci as Kat Harvey, the lonely new girl who becomes the only living friend a ghost has ever had. She was just 15 when Casper hit theaters, and she pulled off something almost impossible. She acted against a character who did not exist on set yet, talking to empty air that animators would fill in months later. She turns 46 in 2026. Critics were split on the movie, but almost every review singled her out as the beating heart that made it work. Ricci was already famous as Wednesday Addams, and Casper proved she could carry an entire film as the lead, not just steal scenes. What came next was a bold left turn. She chased dark, strange, grown-up roles like The Ice Storm, Buffalo 66, and Sleepy Hollow, refusing to stay a child star. That gamble built one of the most respected careers of her generation. Today she is everywhere again. She plays the unforgettable Misty Quigley on Yellow Jackets, a role that earned her an Emmy nomination, and she returned to the Addams world as a villain on Netflix's Wednesday, hunting the new version of the character she once was. In 2025, she starred in the action comedy Guns Up, and in early 2026, she signed on to lead and produce the Peacock series, The Astrology House. The little girl who befriended a ghost grew into a full-blown horror queen. Number 2. Bill Pullman as Dr. James Harvey, the grieving father and afterlife therapist who talks ghosts through their unfinished business. He was 41 when the film came out, and he gave the whole story its quiet sadness. His character is chasing the ghost of his dead wife, and that ache is what keeps a kid's comedy from feeling weightless. He turned 73 in 2026. Pullman was on a once-in-a-lifetime hot streak in the mid-90s. The same year as Casper, he charmed audiences in While You Were Sleeping, and 1 year later he was the President of the United States punching aliens in Independence Day. For a stretch, he was Hollywood's most dependable everyman. He never chased the spotlight the way other stars did. Instead, he built a long, strange, respected body of work. From the nightmare logic of David Lynch's Lost Highway to a haunting turn as a broken detective on The Sinner. Now he is busier than ever and clearly having fun. He is set to bring back Lone Star in Spaceballs the New One in 2027, acting alongside his own son Lewis Pullman, who is now a major star in his own right. In 2026, he made his Royal Shakespeare Company debut in The Cherry Orchard, next to Kenneth Branagh, and he appeared in the Netflix mystery series The Burrows. Off-screen, he restores old barns and plants fruit orchards. The man who once talked to ghosts now talks to Shakespeare audiences. Number 3. Devon Sawa, as the human Casper, the dreamy boy the ghost transforms into, for one single dance at the Halloween party. He was 16 when the movie came out, and his screen time is tiny. He appears for under a minute and delivers one line, "Can I keep you?" that an entire generation never forgot. He turns 48 in 2026. That blink of a moment turned him into a teen idol overnight. He followed it with Now and Then, Idle Hands, and the horror smash Final Destination, plus the unforgettable role of the obsessed fan in Eminem's Stan video. Then it all stopped. Sawa has been honest in recent interviews that he struggled badly with addiction in his early 20s, partied through Hollywood's club scene, and was quietly labeled a risk. He says producers cut him from a Final Destination sequel over it. So he walked away, went home to Canada, and got sober. The comeback is real and it is loud. He spent years rebuilding on shows like Nikita, before exploding back into horror on the series Chucky, the 2025 slasher Hard Eyes, and the video game adaptation Twisted Metal. He is now lined up to star in a brand new Return of the Living Dead film. He is married with 2 kids and laughs that his children could not care less about Casper. They only know him as the guy from the Eminem song. The teen heartbreaker became a horror movie staple all over again. Number 4. Malachi Pearson as the voice of Casper, the gentle, hopeful sound that gave the friendly ghost his entire soul. He was just 13 when he recorded the role, making him the first male to ever voice Casper the Friendly Ghost. He turns 45 in 2026. Here is the wild part. Because Devon Sawa appears on screen as the human version, fans spent years assuming Sawa voiced the ghost too. He did not. Every word out of Casper's mouth, every "Can I keep you," came from Pearson in a recording booth, and he almost never gets the credit. He kept the role going on the animated spin-off, The Spooktacular New Adventures of Casper, voicing the character across all 52 episodes through the late 90s. He popped up on shows like Keenan and Kel and Malcolm in the Middle, then slowly stepped out of the spotlight. What he did next is a turn nobody saw coming. Pearson became a working DJ. Today, he is one half of a music duo called Motel Club. spinning records instead of voicing cartoons. After more than 2 decades away from acting, he quietly returned in 2025 to voice a small role in a short horror film, a tiny wink to the genre that made him famous. He has kept his life remarkably private for someone whose voice is buried inside one of the most beloved family films ever made. Millions of people know his voice by heart. Almost nobody knows his face. Number 5. Kathy Moriarty as Kerrigan Crittenden, the greedy heiress who inherits a creepy mansion and will do anything to dig out its hidden treasure. She was 34 when the film came out, and she played the cartoon villainy to the absolute hilt. Kerrigan even dies, becomes a ghost herself, and gets booted into the afterlife, and Moriarty made every second of it gleefully nasty. She turned 66 in 2026. People forget she was once an Oscar nominee. As a teenager, she was discovered at a beauty contest by Joe Pesci, who pushed her to audition for Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. She earned an Academy Award nomination for it at just 20 years old and looked like the next big thing. Then, a near-fatal car accident knocked her out of the business for years and forced her to claw her way back. She found a perfect second act playing big, broad, larger-than-life characters, the comic villain in Casper, and the terrifying camp counselor in But I'm a Cheerleader. She also reunited with Robert De Niro for Analyze That. Away from the camera, she became a businesswoman, owning part of a pizza restaurant chain in Los Angeles. These days, she takes time for family, having married in 1999 and raised twins born in 2000. The Bronx girl who started out across from De Niro turned movie villainy into a true art form, and she clearly had a blast doing it. Few actors play Wicked as joyfully as she did. Number 6. Eric Idle as Paul Dibbs Plutzker, Kerrigan's nervous, scheming sidekick who is always one bad idea behind his boss. He was 52 when Casper came out, and he turned Dibbs into a perfect bundle of cowardice and greed. He turns 83 in 2026. Idle is not just any comedic actor. He is a founding member of Monty Python, one of the most influential comedy groups in history, and the man who wrote Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, which became the most requested song at British funerals for over 20 years. He later turned Monty Python and the Holy Grail into the Broadway smash Spamalot, which won the Tony for Best Musical and made him a fortune. His real story took a frightening turn in 2019, when doctors found pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest kinds. Because it was caught freakishly early, surgeons removed it, and Idle became a rare survivor. He turned that scare into a charity, the Brightside Fund, to push for early testing. Now in his 80s, he refuses to slow down. He went on the road with a one-man show called Always Look on the Bright Side of Life Live, touring Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom and beyond, into 2026, joking on stage that this might be the last time you see him. He even sang as a hedgehog on The Masked Singer, just to prove he still could. A comedy giant who cheated death and never stopped laughing. Number 7. Joe Napodi as the voice of Stretch, the hot-tempered ringleader of Casper's three obnoxious uncles, the ghostly trio. He was 39 when the film arrived, and he gave Stretch his fast-talking, big-city, troublemaker energy. He turned 70 in 2026. Here is the cool part. Steven Spielberg handpicked him for the role. Nippo tells the story that he walked into the audition not even caring if he got it, because he was already starring on a TV show, and that careless swagger was exactly the attitude Spielberg wanted for Stretch. At the time, he was best known as Frankie Waters, the wisecracking mechanic on the action series Viper, where he was the only original cast member to last the entire run. Filming on Casper was even delayed when the huge Northridge earthquake hit Los Angeles in early 1994. Like his fellow uncles, Nipodi leaned hard into voice work after the movie, lending his pipes to video games and cartoons for years. But his true first love never changed. He came up as a stand-up comedian, and that is where he lives today. He still performs live, produces his own charity comedy events, and even wrote a children's book and recorded a comedy country song. The Detroit kid who once opened for music legends in Las Vegas turned a ghost with a temper into one of the film's biggest laughs, then went right back to the microphone where he started. He never stopped being a comic at heart. Number 8. Joe Alasky as the voice of Stinky, the middle uncle whose superpower is breath so foul it can knock a person flat. He was 43 when Casper came out, and his goofy, raspy delivery made Stinky a fan favorite. He would have turned 74 in 2026, but the world lost him on February 3, 2016, when he died of cancer at the age of 63. Here is what most Casper fans never realized. They were listening to one of the greatest voice artists who ever lived. Alasky was chosen as a successor to the legendary Mel Blanc, which meant he became the official voice of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Sylvester, Tweety, and dozens of other Looney Tunes characters after Blanc passed. He won a Daytime Emmy in 2004 for voicing Daffy on Duck Dodgers. He was also the voice of Grandpa Lou Pickles on Rugrats, and he even voiced President Richard Nixon in Forrest Gump. Fans called him the man of a thousand voices, and the title fit. He had one of the rarest skills in Hollywood, the ability to perfectly mimic icons that millions grew up loving, and to do it with real warmth. He kept working right up to the end, voicing classic characters in Tom and Jerry films. He was a quiet craftsman in a business that rarely gives its voice actors any spotlight. The next time you hear Bugs Bunny, there is a good chance you are hearing Casper's stinky uncle. Number 9. Brad Garrett as the voice of Fatso, the largest and dimmest of the ghostly trio, usually on the receiving end of Stretch's anger. He was 35 when the movie came out, and his deep, booming voice was already unmistakable. He turned 66 in 2026. Just 1 year after Casper, Garrett landed the role that changed his life. He became Robert Barone, the jealous brother on Everybody Loves Raymond, a part that won him 3 Emmy Awards and made him a household name. But voice work has always been his secret weapon. That huge rumbling voice has powered some of the most famous animated films ever made, including A Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, Ratatouille, and Tangled, plus the 2025 movie Elio. He started out as a stand-up, winning the comedy category on Star Search, and becoming one of the youngest comics ever to perform on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. Today, he still works the stage constantly, and even owns his own comedy club at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, where fans can catch him live. In late 2025, he reunited with his old castmates for the Everybody Loves Raymond 30th Anniversary Special, a bittersweet gathering that paid tribute to the stars they have lost. From a chaotic ghost to a grumpy television brother to half the cartoons your kids love, Garrett turned that one-of-a-kind voice into a career that simply keeps going. Not bad for the loudest uncle in the house. Number 10. Amy Brenneman as Amelia Harvey, Kat's late mother, who appears near the end in one of the film's most tearful moments. She was 30 when Casper came out, and her brief, warm presence delivers the emotional gut punch the whole story builds toward. She turns 62 in 2026. Here is the hidden behind-the-scenes romance. Brenneman married Brad Silberling, the director of Casper, in 1995, the very same year the film hit theaters. They are still together and raised 2 children, so the woman playing the angelic mother was falling in love with the man calling the shots. At the time, she was a rising star, fresh off an Emmy-nominated run on Nipped Blue. And the same year as Casper, she also appeared in Michael Mann's crime classic Heat. She went on to create and star in her own hit series, Judging Amy, which was loosely based on her own mother, a real-life judge. She later anchored shows like Private Practice and the haunting HBO drama The Leftovers. Off-screen, she is a thoughtful, deeply curious person. In 2026, she graduated from Harvard Divinity School with a master's in religion and public life, returning to the same university where she once studied comparative religion as an undergraduate. The actress who played a ghostly mother for a few unforgettable minutes built a long career, a lasting marriage to the film's own director, and a second life as a serious student. Quite a return for such a small role. Number 11. Garrett Ratliff Henson as Vic DeFilippi, the popular boy Kat falls for, who turns out to be helping the mean girl humiliate her. He was 15 when the film came out, and he nailed that specific brand of charming, two-faced teenage jerk. He turns 46 in 2026. Most kids of the 90s already knew his face from somewhere else. He played Guy Germain in the entire Mighty Ducks trilogy, the hockey movies that were everywhere at the time, and he kept playing real hockey in school on the side. His family tree is stacked with talent. His older brother is Eldon Henson, a well-known actor you may recognize as Foggy Nelson from the Daredevil series. His younger half-brother is Ellington Ratliff, a musician from the band R5. So performing runs deep in the blood. Garrett eventually shifted his focus from being in front of the camera to working behind it. He earned a film degree from Sarah Lawrence College and then a master's in directing and screenwriting from Columbia University. Today he lives in New York City, where he works in film and television production. And he still pops up acting now and then, including in the 2024 horror film Imaginary. He married in 2007 and has a son. The boy who broke Kat's heart on screen grew up, got serious about the craft, and now helps build movies from the other side of the lens. He traded the spotlight for the director's chair. Number 12. Jessica Wesson as Amber Whitmire, the spoiled, snobby popular girl who torments Kat and treats the new student like dirt. She was 14 when the movie came out, and she played the perfect 90s mean girl, all fake smiles and sharp insults. She turns 46 in 2026. Wesson was a familiar face on television back then. She had a memorable run on Home Improvement as Jennifer, the first girlfriend of the oldest Taylor son, and she earned Young Artist Award nominations for her work. She also starred in the family movie Flipper and appeared in Milk Money. Then came A Small Twist of Fate. A few years after Casper, Wesson popped up in the series Judging Amy, the show created by and starring Amy Brenneman, who had played Kat's ghostly mother in this very film. Two Casper alumni quietly crossing paths again. But unlike most of this cast, Wesson did not stick around Hollywood. Her last acting credit came in the 2001 film Long Shot, and after that she stepped away from the industry entirely, becoming one of those former child actors who simply chose a normal, private life out of the spotlight. There were no scandals and no dramatic flameout, just a quiet exit. She remains a nostalgic favorite for anyone who grew up watching her play the girl you were supposed to root against. Sometimes the kid who played the villain just grows up and walks away happy, and there is something genuinely refreshing about that. Number 13, Chauncey Lepardi as Nicky, one of the kids in Kat's orbit at her new school. He was 13 when Casper came out, a small role for a child actor who was already a recognizable face. He turns 45 in 2026. Casper fans may not place him here, but every 90s kid knows him from somewhere huge. Lepardi played Michael Squint's Paleteris in The Sandlot, the bespectacled boy who famously fakes drowning to steal a kiss from the gorgeous lifeguard. That single scene made him a permanent piece of pop culture, and he came back to the role years later in a Sandlot sequel. He stayed busy as a teenager, appearing as the bully Alan White on the cult comedy Freaks and Geeks, and later as a geeky sailor on Gilmore Girls. Then he made a clean break from acting, telling interviewers he simply did not enjoy the business side of Hollywood. His second life is wonderfully on brand. He still lives in Los Angeles, has 5 kids, and runs his own cannabis brand named Squints, a cheeky nod to the character that made him famous. He pops up at fan events, signing autographs for grown adults who still quote his Sandlot lines back to him word for word. The kid from the haunted house classroom turned out to be one of the most quoted child stars of the decade. He left the spotlight on his own terms and built a life that makes him laugh. Number 14. Ben Stein as Mr. Rugg, the flat, droning lawyer who handles the will that kicks the whole plot into motion. He was 50 when Casper came out, and casting him was a perfect inside joke. He turns 82 in 2026. Stein is the man behind one of the most quoted scenes in film history. 9 years before Casper, in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he stood in front of a classroom droning Bueller, Bueller in the most lifeless voice imaginable, and it became legendary. The wild part is that the scene was never even written. Director John Hughes just liked Stein's strange, flat voice and let him improvise an economics lecture on the spot. Stein has said for years he still does not understand why people find it so funny. His real life is even more surprising than his movie roles. Before Hollywood, he worked as a speechwriter for 2 American presidents, Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. He is a trained lawyer and economist who graduated as valedictorian from Yale Law School. He later hosted his own game show, Win Ben Stein's Money, alongside a young Jimmy Kimmel, and the two even won an Emmy for it. For a whole generation, he was also the deadpan face of those famous Clear Eyes commercials. He has kept busy as a writer and commentator well into his 80s. The man who made boring into an art form played yet another perfectly dull character, and somehow, that is exactly why it works. Number 15. Don Novello as Father Guido Sarducci, one of the would-be ghost exterminators Kerrigan hires to clear out the haunted house before she ever finds Dr. Harvey. He was 52 when Casper came out, slipping in his most famous character for a quick, hilarious cameo. He turns 83 in 2026. If you grew up watching Saturday Night Live, you know Sarducci instantly. He is the chain-smoking, sunglasses-wearing priest who reports gossip from the Vatican in a thick Italian accent. Novello created the character in 1973 out of a costume he bought for $7.50 at a thrift store, then wrote it to fame on SNL, where Sarducci still holds the record for the most appearances by any recurring character. The man fully committed to the bit. In 1981, he actually got arrested at Vatican City for impersonating a priest while doing a photo shoot in costume. He is also a sharp writer who became famous for the Laszlo letters, a book of real letters he mailed to powerful people under a fake name just to see how they would respond. He voiced the demolitions expert Vinny in Disney's Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And he is still going strong. In May 2025, he brought Sarducci back onto Stephen Colbert's late-night show to joke about the new pope. More than 50 years later, the thrift store priest absolutely refuses to retire. Number 16. Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, who appears in the opening montage when Kerrigan desperately calls in experts to clear the ghosts out of the mansion. He was 42 when the film came out, bringing back his famous Ghostbusters character for a brilliant blink of a cameo. He turns 74 in 2026. The joke is perfect. A real Ghostbuster, proton pack and all, walks into Whipstaff Manor, gets spooked by the uncles, backs out, and mutters that they should call someone else. The team that once saved New York from a giant marshmallow monster cannot handle three goofy poltergeists. Steven Spielberg pulled strings to get Aykroyd, since the two went all the way back to the film 1941. And here is a fresh detail. In late 2025, Aykroyd confirmed that this tiny Casper cameo is officially part of Ghostbusters history, meaning the two beloved franchises are quietly connected forever. Aykroyd is a comedy institution, a former Saturday Night Live star, an Oscar nominee for Driving Miss Daisy, and the man who helped create the Blues Brothers. He recently played Ray once more in the 2024 film Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, proving he will likely never fully hang up the jumpsuit. He has also built a successful business empire outside acting, including his own vodka brand. The man who made ghost hunting cool stepped into a ghost comedy for 30 seconds and gave fans an Easter egg they are still talking about decades later. Number 17, Rodney Dangerfield, who appears in one of Casper's strangest and funniest moments. He was 73 when the film came out, popping up as one of the faces Dr. Harvey morphs into while the uncles take over his body in front of a mirror. He would have turned 105 in 2026, but the legendary comic passed away on October 5, 2004, at the age of 82. That mirror scene is a sly tribute to the horror classic Poltergeist, except here it is played for laughs, with Harvey's reflection twisting into a parade of famous faces. Spielberg made a few phone calls and reeled in heavy hitters, and Dangerfield was one of them. Dangerfield was one of the most quotable comedians who ever lived, built almost entirely on one catchphrase: "I get no respect." He spent decades grinding in clubs before becoming a movie star later in life, with hits like Caddyshack and Back to School. There is also a fun thread connecting him to this very cast. Years earlier, Don Novello, who also cameos in Casper as Father Sarducci, appeared in Dangerfield's music video for Rappin' Rodney, playing a priest who gives Rodney his last rites and then helps himself to his fries. Two future Casper faces, already crossing paths. Dangerfield kept performing almost to the end of his life, beloved by younger comedians who saw him as a hero. A true legend, getting no respect, even as a ghostly reflection. Number 18, Clint Eastwood, who also shows up as one of the celebrity faces in that wild mirror sequence. He was 64 when Casper came out, lending his unmistakable squint to a quick, surprising cameo. He turns 96 in 2026, and remarkably, he has kept working as a filmmaker deep into his 90s. Eastwood had a soft spot for this one. He got his very start in Hollywood decades earlier as a contract player at Universal, the same studio behind Casper, so director Brad Silberling says he showed up nostalgic and happy to hang around the set. But he drove a hilarious bargain. Eastwood reportedly agreed to do his cameo only if Steven Spielberg filmed a cameo of his own. Spielberg agreed, on the condition that his footage would never, ever appear in the finished film. Silberling got to direct Spielberg in a scene the public will likely never see. Eastwood is one of the most decorated figures in movie history, with 4 Academy Awards and a career as both a tough guy star and an acclaimed director. His most recent film as director was the courtroom drama Juror Number 2 in 2024. Reports about whether he will direct again have gone back and forth, but at 96 he has nothing left to prove. From spaghetti westerns to Oscar-winning dramas, the man is a living legend, and he spent one strange afternoon turning into Bill Pullman's haunted reflection. So tell me in the comments, which Casper cast member surprised you the most? The little girl who became a horror queen? The heartthrob who vanished and clawed his way back? Or the boring teacher who once wrote speeches for presidents? And here is the real debate. Casper turned into a human boy for one slow dance and shattered a generation's heart. Yet critics mostly shrugged at the film. So be honest, is Casper a genuine 90s classic, or did pure nostalgia trick all of us into loving a movie that was never that great? Fight it out below.